The Vatican's Forbidden Exorcism Files. The Vatican's most famous exorcist, Father Gabriele Amorth, claimed he performed over 160,000 exorcisms. But here's the unsettling part he admitted himself. Only about 100 of those, in his view, were actual, genuine demonic possessions. That leaves tens of thousands of rituals that were something else. So what happened in all those other cases? Where did the records of those encounters go? And what truth could they be hiding? For centuries, the Catholic Church has held up the rite of exorcism as its ultimate spiritual weapon, a sacred, powerful ritual to drive out demonic forces. It's meant to be a symbol of God's final authority over evil, a clear statement that light always conquers darkness. Publicly, the Church talks about exorcism as a rare, serious, and victorious practice, something saved only for the most extreme cases of spiritual warfare. But behind the hallowed walls of Vatican City, a different story has always been whispered. It's a stubborn rumor, a conspiracy theory that just won't die. This story speaks of a different kind of archive, one that's completely separate from the public records and papal decrees. It tells of a secret vault holding documents so damning, so controversial, that they're kept under the tightest security imaginable. These are supposedly the Vatican's forbidden exorcism files, the records of every ritual that went wrong, every prayer that failed, and every soul that wasn't saved. These are the stories of the Church's failures, and if they're real, they could hold a truth about evil that threatens to shatter the very foundations of faith. Section 1. The Fortress of Secrets. To get why this mystery even exists, you first have to look at the Vatican itself. At its core is the Vatican Apostolic Archive, which until recently was known as the Secret Archive. Now, secret here comes from the Latin secretum, meaning private. It's the Pope's personal collection of documents. And it's huge. With over 53 miles of shelving, it holds 12 centuries of history, from letters Mary, Queen of Scots, wrote before her execution to the papal bull that excommunicated Martin Luther. Getting access is notoriously difficult. Scholars have to be highly qualified. Their research requests are intensely vetted, and even then, they might only get to see a few pre-approved documents a day. For centuries, this intense secrecy has fueled wild speculation about what else might be hidden away in its climate-controlled bunkers. While the Vatican has become a little more transparent, that long-standing culture of concealment has created the perfect breeding ground for conspiracy theories. Let's be honest, the Church has a long history of managing its own story, especially around its more controversial practices. Back in the 18th and 19th centuries, when the world was becoming more secular, exorcisms were often discouraged. Their failures were quietly swept under the rug to avoid making the Church look weak. This set a pattern of controlling the narrative, of making sure the public only saw the victories, not the defeats. So the question isn't if the Vatican keeps secrets, but what secrets it's keeping today. And the most persistent rumor is that those secrets involve exorcisms that ended not in triumph, but in tragedy. Section 2. A Public Catastrophe, the Annalisa Michel Case. If you want to understand why the Church would be so desperate to hide its failures, you only need to look at the horrifying case of Annalisa Michel. In 1976, this young German woman died of malnutrition and dehydration after 67 exorcism rites were performed on her over 10 months. Doctors had diagnosed Annalise with temporal lobe epilepsy and severe depression. She suffered from seizures, saw terrifying hallucinations, and would harm herself. But her deeply religious family became convinced she was possessed. They stopped her medical treatment and turned to 2 Catholic priests, who got permission from the local bishop to perform the exorcisms. What followed was brutal. Annalise would speak in different voices, scream for hours on end, and refuse to eat or drink. Her death led to a massive legal case. Her parents and the 2 priests were found guilty of negligent homicide. The court concluded that Annalisa was mentally ill and died because she was denied medicine and food. The Annalisa Michel case was a total public relations disaster for the Church. It was a documented public failure where the line between faith and delusion blurred, with fatal results. It stands as a chilling example of what can happen when an exorcism goes horribly wrong. And it gives the Vatican a powerful motive to make sure that any other, similar cases never, ever see the light of day. It proves that the stakes here aren't just spiritual, but life and death. Section 3. The Modern Gatekeepers. In our own time, no one is more famous for exorcisms than Father Gabriele Amorth. He was the chief exorcist for the Diocese of Rome for almost 30 years, and the Vatican's most public face in the war against demons. He even founded the International Association of Exorcists. But it's his own words that give us the most compelling piece of this puzzle. He openly stated that only a tiny fraction of the thousands he saw were genuinely possessed. Most, he said, just needed a psychiatrist. This forces a question you can't ignore. What about the cases that fell somewhere in the middle? The ones that weren't simple psychiatric cases, but where the exorcism still failed? What about the rituals that had no effect or worse, made someone's condition even more unstable? If records of these events exist, they aren't public, and it seems the Vatican wants to keep it that way. Back in the early 2000s and 10s, the Discovery Channel announced a new series, The Exorcist Files, and claimed it had been given unprecedented access to Vatican case files and its top exorcists. The news went everywhere. But the Vatican's response was fast and final. A spokesman denied any official collaboration, calling the claims misleading and totally out of place. While the show's producers insisted they got permission from local bishops for priests to be on the show, the Holy See itself refused to approve the project. That move effectively killed any idea of official transparency. It was a modern-day demonstration of the Vatican's iron grip on the story of exorcism. It sent a clear message. The Church, and only the Church, decides what the world gets to know about its fight with the demonic. Before we get into what these files might actually say, I want to hear from you. What do you think is the Vatican's most protected secret? Drop your theories in the comments below. Section 4. The Heart of the Conspiracy. What could the files contain? If we take the rumors seriously, if a hidden archive of failed exorcisms is real, then what's inside has to be devastating for the Church. The level of secrecy would only make sense if the revelations could challenge its moral and spiritual authority. So, what could possibly be in these forbidden files? There are 3 chilling possibilities. The first and most direct threat would be proof of demonic victories. The Church's entire authority rests on its claim to wield God's power, a power that's supposed to be absolute over evil. But what if there are records of cases where the demon won, where the priest performed the rite over and over, only for the entity to laugh at him and remain? Even worse, what if there are files detailing priests who were themselves broken, corrupted, or even killed during these rituals? Documents like that would suggest the Church's power isn't absolute, that there are some forms of evil it simply can't defeat. That would be a crippling blow to its spiritual supremacy. The second possibility is just as bad, but far more tragic. The files could hold countless more stories like Annalise Michel's, cases of people suffering from severe, undiagnosed mental illnesses, who were put through exorcisms instead of getting the medical help they desperately needed. These files would be a library of malpractice, a chronicle of centuries of misdiagnosis where schizophrenia was mistaken for Satan. It would paint a picture of an institution that, through ignorance or arrogance, let sick people suffer and die, all while claiming it was saving their souls. A revelation like that would be an unforgivable moral scandal. And then there's the most speculative and, frankly, the most unsettling idea. What if the files show that what the Church calls demonic possession is something else entirely? For centuries, the Church has set the rules for this battle. But what if these records describe encounters that don't fit neatly into theology? What if they describe forces or beings that aren't angels or demons? Could they be evidence of interdimensional entities, psychic phenomena, or something so alien it falls outside our understanding of both science and religion? If the Church has been running into something it doesn't understand but has been calling it demonic just to stay in control, the truth wouldn't just challenge the Church. It would change our understanding of reality itself. Conclusion. Let's be clear. There is no public verifiable proof that a special archive of forbidden exorcism files actually exists in the Vatican. No whistleblower has ever come forward with a document. What we do have, however, is a very strong circumstantial case. We have the Vatican's deep-rooted culture of secrecy, an institution that has hidden documents and controlled its own story for centuries. We have a documented history of exorcisms that ended in tragedy, which gives them a clear motive for burying any others. And we have the Church's own recent actions, pushing back hard against any outsiders who try to look too closely at its most controversial ritual. Maybe the forbidden files aren't all in one secret vault. Maybe they're scattered throughout those 53 miles of the Apostolic Archive, hidden in plain sight, their true meaning known only to a handful of people. Or maybe the secret isn't on paper at all. Maybe the biggest secret is the fear itself. The Vatican's fear that its authority isn't as absolute as it claims, its fear of failure, and its deep fear of the unknown. The whispers of the forbidden files continue, not because we know what's in them, but because the Church's silence makes us wonder what it is they have to hide. If you want to delve deeper into history's greatest unanswered questions, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Until next time, keep asking questions.